Hi, everyone. I'd like to do a shout out to our sponsor, Baco Diagnostics. Early detection is the single most important factor in improving patient outcomes. The Baco Diagnostics team recognizes how impactful a podiatric physician can be and remains committed to supporting you in your role as the first line of defense in diagnosing conditions of the lower extremity. Thanks to the unwavering support of their clients, Baco Diagnostics has been able to give back to the podiatric community for 16 years by providing podiatric educational resources and advocating for the position. Baco Diagnostics, helping podiatric physicians keep America on its feet. If you have not yet had the opportunity to utilize Baco Diagnostics services, get started today by sending an email to corporaterelations@bacodiagnostics.com. The first 50 podiatry offices who request a starter kit will receive a Dean's Chat mug. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Dean's Chat, where we discuss all things podiatric medicine. My name is Dr. Jeffrey Jensen. I'm the Dean at the Arizona College of Podiatric Medicine and the co-host for the Dean's Chat podcast. Once again, I'm with my co-host, Dr. Joanna Richey. Joe, how are you doing?
Hey, Jeff. I have an embarrassing confession that's actually kind of hilarious. So we were putting Christmas decorations or holiday decorations out. And like those candy canes that run along the driveway? The statement we'll say sometimes in the OR, it's better to be lucky than good. Well, it was like the opposite. If I had tried to hit this water line, I would not have been able to hit it. I literally put a stake right through, and it's like a bullseye. We didn't find out until the sprinklers went on this morning. So we have been dealing with some fun excitement in the Ganzerk household this morning. It's like the Christmas vacation moment. So we've been having some funny little memes back and forth. But outside of that, luckily it was not a major water line of any kind. It was just a small irrigation one. So that's been like a relief off my shoulders because I felt like a complete idiot that it tells you to stake it down into the ground. And I was giving it what for.
So you didn't go on that app that looked for water lines before you put your candy cane things in?
Well, it's like the yard irrigation.
Oh, that kind. Oh, so, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Right. So that's how my morning's been.
All right. Well, I'm glad you were able to join us.
Yes. Lots of uncertainty there.
All right. Oh, well, we've got a phenomenal guest today. Right? We're going to talk about some uncertainty. So our guest today is well known in podiatry circles, and her name is Cindy Seranti, but most of us know you by Cindy Pezza. And the reason we all know you is you are a 2020 inductee into the Podiatry Management Hall of Fame for all the reasons we're going to talk about today. And you and I have worked together a little bit. We're going to talk about practice management. We're going to talk about your company. You're the president and CEO of Pinnacle Practice Achievement. You cut your teeth as an office manager in a podiatry practice. You've seen a lot of what works and doesn't work. And really, in 2025, we've seen a lot of changes in the practice environment. Graduates are going right into hospital work. There's private equity groups. Private practice is something that is still thriving, but there's uncertainty and there's the unknowns. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit today. Cindy, welcome to Dean's Chat.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No, it's my pleasure. Just for our audience, Cindy and I were talking because I had some questions about our clinic a couple of years ago, and I wanted to pay her, and she said, "No, just buy me a steak dinner sometime." So I still
have dinners all over the country.
Yeah, I haven't paid up yet on that, but that's good. I'm looking forward to the interview today. Cindy, tell us about this evolution. How did you come up? Finally, you're the CEO, you're the president, you're helping doctors all over the country. How has that evolved for you? How did that come about?
So it started back in 2002, seems like 100 years ago. I just started working part-time in a podiatry practice here. It was in Stoughton, Massachusetts. I live in Massachusetts. I'm from this area. I pronounce most of my R's, so just be aware of that. Sometimes I'll drop them, but you'll get it. But so I started in the front office, and my mother actually was the only other employee of this doctor who had purchased the practice very recently. So it was slow. So she was the only employee. And so he started to gain some traction. So he said, "Do you know anyone looking for work?" At the time, my two older children were very, very small, and I just wanted to get out of the house. I was an English major in college. So, everything evolves and you usually end up doing not what you set out to do, unless you're a podiatrist. So I started in the front office. I made my way into the back office and very soon started to realize none of our patients know what the doctor can do for them. So I kind of made it my mission and started going to podiatry management meetings. And, I talk a lot. I have a big mouth. I listen, I learn, I engage with other people. And I started making it my mission to teach our patients and say, what more can we do for you that you didn't know? Because I teach my doctors this all the time. Every patient that sits in your waiting room, or your reception area, we should call it, thinks you only do what they have. So they have fungal nails, you're the fungal nail doctor. They have a wart, you're the wart doctor, right? And that's not all you do. So even you're referring, providers, they don't know what you do. They get pigeonholed and they only send you diabetic foot care. They only send you heel pain, right? So through the years, we built a very successful practice. And then I just got more and more interested in helping other doctors. And then eventually 10 years in, I couldn't balance the consulting I was doing outside of the office. And at that point, I was managing the office. So I went out and started Pinnacle Practice Achievement, which my company was named by Dr. John Juliana in the 11th hour of 2011, when I was on the phone panicking on December 30th saying, I need to register this LLC this year. And so he said, Cindy, just pick something. I think Pinnacle something. So I said, okay, that's good. I like that. So I'll give him credit for that. Over the years, I have worked with existing practices to help them improve their structures, their protocols, their systems. A lot of times it was, they didn't have any. It's how do you do this? How do you answer the phone? How do you make an appointment? What's your treatment protocol for heel pain? And the doctors just said, well, it's in my head. And so it doesn't exist when it's there. And then I think about 8 or 9 years ago, a doctor who I met when he was in his second year at Kent State called me starting his second year of residency and said, I want you to help me open my practice. I want to open my own practice right when I'm done. It's the day that I'm finished. I want to open. And I said, well, I've never done that before. I've never helped a startup practice. I've helped plenty of existing. He said, well, let's you and I learn together. And his name is Dr. David Applegate. He practices in Katy, Texas, multiple locations, very successful. And we figured a lot of things out together, like how to fluff up a business plan so that someone at a bank will give you a lot of money when you have a lot of student loans. So over the years, I've helped lots and lots of startups all over the country, big and small. I'm recently helping some cash practices. They don't want to deal with the insurance red tape. So that's a whole new niche that I'm helping with. I've had to evolve. And I've had to help my practices evolve because, as you know, the world of podiatry does not resemble what it did 10 years ago, 15, certainly not 20 years ago. It's sort of like I had to become Madonna. You know how like Madonna in the 80s was one thing and she was blonde and she was like a little bit chubby, I think, at one point. And then she became like, super athletic looking. And then she had a British accent. And every couple of years, she had to reinvent herself to stay relevant. That's what I've had to do.
It's so interesting, Joe, your thoughts. There's so many things we can talk about, jumping off points here.
Oh, yeah. No, and I love this conversation, Cindy, because you're absolutely right. The healthcare landscape is completely different than it was, certainly 10 years ago, but even 5 years ago. Like
COVID did a lot.
And some positive and some not so positive. Right. And so like, where do you even start? Like, if you're in a private practice setting and maybe you're feeling really overwhelmed, there's a lot of regulatory, there's a lot of incentive bonus things and metrics and things to like, where do you even start as a new provider?
I think you have to identify your pain points. You have to identify what's sort of at your pay grade. Mm-hmm. I have a lot of doctors that call me that are doing things that I feel like, did you need to go to podiatry school to do that? Or, did that require a surgical residency? You're the only one that knows how to hit Control-Alt-Delete when the computers are frozen. Things like that. It's a power thing. We don't want to give up control over our practices because that's your blood, sweat, and tears, right? In your private practice. So they call me and we can walk through steps of, okay, how's your schedule? What does it look like? Do you run far behind? We look through the patient day, the clinic flow. We look through if there's protocols in place. We look through their staff and how well they've been trained, or were they hired since COVID where, it's just, we just need a body to sit in this seat and then just baptism by fire. And that doesn't work out. So a lot of doctors don't even know, they know that they've lost control. They just don't know where to start. I do have a lot of conversations with doctors that I think I scare them on that initial call when I say, I need you to look at this, and this, and get back to me. And I think they start looking into it or requesting reports from their billing team or, certain metrics that they've never looked at before, and it scares them. So they decide just to bury their heads and push forward, because you can still survive, right? You can make money. And, I said to one doctor that I had a conversation with the end of last week, I've known him for years. We talk a few times a year. It's the same conversation every single time. And I say to him, I understand you're still making money, but now you're working twice as hard as you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago. How's your quality of life? Because isn't that what it comes down to, right? I mean, you can love what you do, fine, but no one wants to work for free. Mm. And, if you just continue to do the same thing over and over every day, we know that's the definition of insanity, right? And I talk to my mother about that all the time. We got it. Something has to give, and if you're spending 2 hours a day in your car commuting, I say to doctors, unless you're driving for Uber in between your practice locations, or, you're dropping off Uber Eats on the way to a surgery center that's 45 minutes away, you're not making money in the car. Stay where you are. Let the patients come to you. That's been kind of a whole, a shift in the way that we view a successful practice. Years ago, it was one single doctor had 2 or 3 locations. It was like, wow, he or she must be super successful. Now I tell them, condense, consolidate, simplify, focus, and make money and have a life, right? Because most podiatrists, that's a big draw. That's why there's so many females. In podiatry school, you can have a normal life. You can have a family. You can have the balance. You can kind of make a schedule that works for a real person. So when that starts to give, then you got to make a decision. Like, what's more important? Your kids are only little once. You only have this many years on this planet. So let's make the most of it.
Jeff, I'd love your thoughts on this, since I remember at one point you had said something like, I do 3 things when you were in private practice. You saw patients, charting, took consults with the referring docs, or something like those were your areas that you focused. I'm curious what your take is with some of the things because certainly I have some things that completely, Cindy, everything you said, I was like, yep, check. I'm curious, Jeff, how does it resonate with you?
So I'm surprised you remember that conversation, Joe. So Cindy, when I was in practice, I tried to do what I did best, right? That was be a doctor. So I saw patients, I did surgery, I interfaced with referring doctors, and I did my charts. Outside of that, I was delegating to office managers, billing, my office staff, and I think it was more expensive in terms of overhead, but it let me do what I was uniquely qualified to do at a higher level and scale that up, and it was very successful. Is that one of your challenges? I mean, is that like trying to define what the doctor does and doesn't do? Because I wasn't into cleaning rooms and I wasn't doing the sterilization of instruments. I just didn't think that was worth my time in the big picture.
Right. Yeah. And so you did it the right way. And you're right. Your overhead was higher. Your payroll was higher, but your quality of life was better.
Totally. Right? So is that what yeah.
I mean, I feel like I have to really preach that to a lot of doctors, especially, and it must be just, I guess, dentists and podiatrists, they always have like a spouse somehow involved in the practice, like somewhere in the background, or, it was like, well, we didn't have a biller. So, I sent my wife to a course and she kind of knows what she's doing. I mean, like that kind of stuff it doesn't work. And so if I have a husband and wife that approach me, whether they're both doctors or it's someone with a business background, sort of, in another industry, and then a doctor that they're going to start a practice together, on the initial call, I will say, you can't take it home at night. You have to leave the office at the office. And if you don't think you can do that, then you're going to struggle.
Ooh, that's
Yep.
fair. Is that what you were kind of thinking, Joe?
Yeah, and that's so funny, Cindy. It makes me think of that Gary Keller quote that if you work outside of 9 to 5, like your work hours, it's cheating, right? Because to your point, Cindy, we only have so much time. And out of all of the valuable assets that we want and own, we have time. And it's the only one that's not renewable. That's it. You can keep renewing money. You can figure out money. You can figure out health to maybe some degree, social, like all these other, buckets of, types of wealth. But time is not renewable. We have no control over it in the sense of we are giving it away all day long. So where do you want to give it? And I'm going to throw the ball back to you, Cindy, because I think this is a conversation, certainly. And again, I'm happy to overshare if we need to, but when I went from being a hospital employed doctor and giving time in a completely different context to then shifting to a private practice model and the giving of time with the initial hope that I will invest this time now because later it will pay off, which is different than a hospital-based practice where your investment of time, that is as Graham would say, the marathon, not the sprint.
Right.
What would you say for like advice, or what have you seen in terms of helping people look at their opportunity costs when they think of time?
So one of my big things, like every Monday, I send out a pro tip to my clients. Okay. And it's always something that just pops into my head, like at some point during the week. And I usually write it up on Fridays, send it to my administrator, and she makes it pretty and sends it out for me on Monday mornings. And a lot of times, ironically, it's about there are 24 hours in a day. I don't have more than you. You don't have more than me. The most successful doctors and practices I've ever worked with do not see patients 5 days in clinic. They don't. They have set administrative time. They have meetings once a month with their marketers, with their billers, with their office managers, with me, and they carve out this time. And financially, they're doing better than the practices that don't, because they understand where to focus their energy in order to improve things. If you just keep going and going and going and 5 days a week, and I mean, how are you even getting that charting done? Earlier this afternoon, I met with a long-term practice, 2 female podiatrists. They are amazingly good at getting their chart notes done. We keep track of days to bill and days to pay. How many days does it take to get the claims out? And then how many days on average does it take us for the primary payer to pay? They're always at 2 days to bill, which means within 24 hours, they get all their chart notes done. And then within another 24, the billers scrub them and send out the claims. That's ideal, right? I've worked with doctors before that are months behind in charting. So I'll say, well, with timely filing with some of these private insurance companies now, you can't do that.
Oh,
or you're not going to get paid. Or
I just felt stress, like a lot of stress when you said that.
It's homework. It's homework. It's like midterm papers that you're never going to finish ever in your life. And no one can help you do it. Yes, you can have a scribe and you can use, all these different, technologies, but you still have to dedicate time to get it done. So we talk about that. And they said, I don't know how doctors do that they see all these charts building up and patients are coming back for second and third visits and they didn't even do the first note, or you're being audited. And it's like, you got to hurry up and get a chart note done. So, I mean, all of these things, if you want to be out of the office by 5 o'clock or 5:30 every day, so you can eat dinner with your family, at least a few times a week, then you got to end patients at 4:15. If you want to finish those chart notes and not bring it home every night. I said, I don't know the correlation between doctors that want to see 40 or 50 patients a day in this day and age, which that's not providing a service to anyone. The patients are probably feeling like cattle being herded through the office. Why would you want to do 50 chart notes a day? So those doctors must really not like their families. They must really not want to spend too much time, because the ones that are seeing ideally, I think like 25 to 28 is like an ideal number to me. And 20 to 25% of those new patients, because new patients, those are the revenue drivers, right? And in podiatrists, you're so good at what you do. Most things, unless it's, at-risk foot care, you see them 2 or 3 times and they're good, right? And unless you educate them and let them know what more you can do for them in the future, you might never see them again. So new patients are super important in podiatry practices, but that's the thing. I think you don't need to see any more than 25 to 28 patients a day and spend time. My pro tip today that came out was, don't let lower volume get you down until you look at all the metrics. Because a lot of my practices in November, their volume was down. People are busy, people are traveling, people are forgetting about appointments with the holiday season. So when we look at November compared to the rest of the year, well, the total volume was down, but when I look and calculate the per visit value, it's up. It's always up when they can spend more time, right? We're not rushing patients through the office and doing 2 views on everyone instead of 3 views, or, missing out on additional ankle views if it was like radiating pain or something. When, if you're busy, it's like, I'll just do 2 views. We'll just do that next time. I know we talked about orthotics, but I don't have time for that today. That's business. That's not good business, but putting it off another day, that patient might never come back.
And
So
certainly go ahead, Jeff.
No, go ahead, Joe.
I would say from a patient perspective too, you took the day off work, you're here to get your thing solved. And to your point, Cindy, I can address whatever your concern is here today, but if there are other things that also will add value to your life and help you get back to doing the things that you love doing, and I can do as much of it for you in a condensed setting,
right.
From a patient satisfaction. And again, this will be me as a patient, I language. I love that when my doctor's like, hey, since you're already here, let's just
Right.
do X, Y, or Z.
Right.
Because to have to like schedule another thing and do another thing. So to your point, as easy as it seems to be like, oh yeah, we'll just do it next time because we're busy, we want to just keep going. That is kind of a detriment for our patient that's like, I'm here, I just want to get it done. Can I just do whatever I can get done today? So I can definitely appreciate that.
I mean, I try to teach my doctors, and again, I'm not a podiatrist, so some of the things that I say, I mean, take with a grain of salt, but I have been in this world for a very long time. So, for example, when a patient's having an ingrown toenail procedure done, okay, what do you talk to them about when they're in the chair? The weather, sports, like here in Boston, like it's 22 degrees today. It feels like 5 degrees when your face hurts when you go outside. Like, what are you going to talk about? Right? What about while you're doing the procedure, and also to distract the patient, talk about the cute little boy that you just, saw in the room next door before that patient that was running down the hall so fast because he had got new orthotics and he was so excited to go play soccer with. Well, that patient sitting in the chair may not know that you do orthotics, right? That you are a biomechanical expert. They might not know that you treated kids, right? Maybe it's an older patient and they say, you know what, my grandson complains that his shins hurt all the time. Maybe I should bring him in to see you, right? What about asking that patient when they have an ingrown toenail, when you're doing the procedure, if they ever have knee, hip, or back pain? Like, out of the 3 of us sitting here, do any of you never have knee, hip, or back pain? Like, my lower back has not felt right, I don't know, since, I don't know, before 2000, I guess, maybe not even then, right? But everyone has, no, maybe not the whole population. The patients and the people with Mary Poppins syndrome, you know what that is? They're practically perfect in every way.
Oh.
They might not have knee, hip, or back pain, but the rest of us, real people, we do. So why not talk to them about that when you're doing the ingrown toenail procedure? And they can start talking to you like, yeah, I've had lower back pain for a while or knee problems. Talk to them about how a simple thing like a medical grade or a custom orthotic could really improve their quality of life, could get them back to the gym, could get them active, right? Especially this time of year, right? With New Year's resolutions coming up. And then when you schedule them for a follow-up, put a little note in there, recheck ingrown, and discuss or cast or scan for orthotics. Because then from a practice management standpoint, because what are you really billing when a patient comes back for an ingrown? It's not much, right? But if it's something else that you're discussing, right? Their foot pain, their lower back pain, their gait, whatever, there's an E&M where there wasn't before, and the orthotics. So this is how I think. Every patient that is sitting there in that chair, what more can we do for you that you didn't know? And most people don't.
We all know that early detection is the most important determination in improving patient outcomes. Bako Diagnostics remains committed to supporting you in your role as the first line of defense in diagnosing lower extremity pathologies. Bako Diagnostics, helping podiatric physicians keep America on its feet. You know, I was so engaged in this conversation, my knee didn't hurt, but now it does.
Now it does. See?
Yeah.
I put that in here.
So I have a question for you, Cindy. I think one of the age-old challenges in private practice is scaling up. Do you work with a lot of practices they can get busier, but they can't really get busier unless they hire somebody, but hiring somebody is a lot of expense on the front end? What is the current state of private practice for scaling?
Yeah, that is a really good question of when do I hire another doctor? To me, you hire another doctor when you have fully extended the capabilities of your, we'll call them physician extenders in the practice. Like me, when I was a medical assistant, office manager, whatever I was in the podiatry practice, I would evaluate patients. I would be the one asking if they ever had knee, hip, or back pain. I would be prepping every possible thing. I would be coming in and dispensing and giving instructions. The doctor was allowed to actually be a doctor in the middle of the visit. I tell my doctors, patients only want 7 to 8 minutes of your time. That's all they want. But true, like eye contact, like you're listening to them, you're talking about their history, you're gaining a sense of what their therapeutic objectives are, not looking at the top of your head while you're charting in the room. Okay, not being distracted on your phone, looking for x-ray results, right? So if you have those physician extenders that truly allow you to be what I call the doctor in the middle, right? Staff comes in, evaluates, takes x-rays, preps everything. You come in, you form your diagnosis, you state your treatment plan, you give the treatment options, you do the procedure, whatever it is, you leave, I come in, I finish it all up, right? So,
Absolutely.
I mean, that's like all that it takes. So that then and only then, if you've maximized that and you just are starting to run further and further behind, and there's just no more room to add more staff, then you hire another doctor. But you can't, when you hire another doctor, you can't just give them all your new patients because that's what happens, right?
Totally. Yeah.
And then the existing doctor is like, wait a minute. I'm just cutting toenails all day. And the new guy, he's seeing all the new patients. No, it's like 2 for me, 1 for you. 2 for me, 1 for you. You know, it needs to be fair, and you need to introduce the new doctor to some of your existing patients, maybe some of the routine foot cares. Let them start building up the rapport with those patients. Because if you show that you trust that new doctor to care for your patients, those patients in general will catch on.
That's fair. Joe, and not to hog the conversation, but I had one more scenario there. So I'm a solo practitioner. I'm using my MAs and nurses. I'm doing research, doing all this, and the rooms are filled and life is great. But when I take a week off, I'm paying for, 6 or 7 salaries.
Right.
Does that play a role? I mean, you got to get a life too, right? I mean,
Right. It does
bring
play a role.
in.
So, and you can't force like your staff to take time off.
Right.
That would be great. Well, I take vacation, you take vacation, right?
Yeah, it don't work that
way. It doesn't work that way. You can encourage it by putting it in the schedule far enough in advance that it puts the bug in their head and they go home and say to their families, hey, like we were going to go on to Disney this year. Dr. Jensen's going to be away from this day.
Yeah, I'm not advocating for that, Cindy. Don't get me wrong.
But that's what should happen, right? Ideally. If it doesn't happen, then you need to have projects. You need to have something productive happening when you are not there.
Gotcha.
Okay? In general, if you have a bigger staff and you are a single doctor and you're out, then someone is going to take time off, if not multiple people are going to take time off. As much as staff will ever complain that they need more money, they want a raise, they will always take extra time off if you present the opportunity. It's just how it works. The other part of that is having virtual assistants. Those have been game changers, virtual.
Let's discuss that.
Okay.
So I would make an argument, being old school, that when I call my doctor's office, even if I call the phone company, I'm not interested in talking to virtual assistants.
Okay, so if that's how you feel, that's totally fine.
But do other people feel different, Joe? I mean, do you feel different?
I have no problem speaking with a virtual assistant.
Oh my gosh, this is a generation.
It's so funny, right? Because I know definitely,
partially,
like our students, it wouldn't even be a thing that they would ask.
Oh, they wouldn't, because they don't know any different.
Yeah.
Maybe that explains.
I have a 21-month-old baby. She picks up my phone and scrolls.
Does that explain why I don't like to do the self-checkout at Safeway?
Oh, I don't either. So listen, I don't go into stores. I don't like shopping. My husband does all the grocery shopping because I won't do it. Nope.
But you don't mind talking to a virtual assistant.
Correct. But the one store I will go into is Lowe's, because I really like home improvement. And Lowe's is the girl Home Depot. They could take that from me if they want to. Oh, it's much more decorative. It has just like prettier things at Lowe's. Anyway, so when I go to Lowe's, they only have self-checkout. So I always find someone, like an actual person, employee, and I tell them that I'm going to have a problem because I know that I'm going to. And then they stand there with me while I do it.
There's an analogy there somewhere. I don't know that it's perfect, but I don't know why I even brought it up. But yeah. Joe, I'm interested in this. So I just, everywhere you call, I mean, you call your insurance company, if you call your doctor's office, if you call your phone bill, you do anything, you're stuck in these loops. Your car, I mean, anything. Maybe the thing is just to give up and just say, this is the way it is, instead of complaining about it.
But if that's how you feel, and there are a lot of people that still feel that way, then you don't have to utilize them in that way. You could still have, Mary Beth at your front desk that everybody knows and loves, answering and talking. That's a thing, especially in some parts of the country where they don't want to hear an accent. Okay. If they spoke to me, they would say, nope, that's not Texas, right? But so you could have virtual assistants that do other things, right? That do all of your eligibility and benefit checks, that
I see. Okay.
Blue Cross and sit on hold for half an hour just to see if the patient has, an orthotic benefit. Yeah. Anything that is a tedious task that you don't want to pay a medical assistant $18 an hour to do, you can pay $9 or $10 an hour. And a lot of these VAs with the companies I work with, they have previous employment with insurance companies. It's better to read patient benefits. So most of them, especially in the Philippines, they're registered nurses. Their English, it's better than ours.
Really?
They are incredibly literal. So when they have interviewed me, I sound like a jerk because I'm very sarcastic and they just are very literal. So they, took me word for word. But if you have a system, if you have a process and you have, VAs in the Philippines, they will follow it to a T.
Really?
Yes. It's been a game changer for a lot of my practices who they didn't have the physical space or they just didn't have the funds to be. I mean, the average medical assistant is making between, I think, $18 and $23 an hour to start now. That's crazy. But that's kind of what it's come down to is 75% of the successful, the work that is going into your success of getting paid for what you do is administrative.
Absolutely.
So it's better to pay. So if you don't want someone, offshore or even in another state to be answering your calls, then don't.
That's fair. No, that's totally fair. I just maybe it's that uncomfortable thing because you haven't dealt with it enough or been at the front end. Yeah. So I'm with you. Joe, your thoughts? I've got one more question. If that
so like transition, like I
and whatever. Go ahead.
It kind of goes a little bit with this.
Okay.
But certainly, so we talked a little bit at the very beginning about the changes in the landscape in healthcare in general. But certainly I know I have students ask all the time, they're really interested in private practice, but they have this statement of like private practice is dead. And I tell them that's absolutely not true.
Okay.
But I think what they're maybe picking up on is some of the anxiety or the uncertainty that's out there about what is this going to look like in the future?
Right.
What are your thoughts on that in terms of you've had people reach out to you, I want to start this practice, I'm going to be out in another year.
Right.
How would you help them navigate this landscape of uncertainty?
I think that the same people, the same doctors who are disheartened by the future of private practice, it's the same mentality as the ones that for years at every podiatry meeting were walking around like Chicken Little. The sky is falling and everything. And yeah, I guess if you just focus on like one thing, yes, insurance reimbursement is bad, right? It's not fair. Like, CMS doesn't understand the scope of what you do and they pick on podiatry. Fine. We could focus on that. Or you could focus on that podiatry is a very needed specialty. I think that it's the only specialty where there's true instant gratification for patients. They walk in, they have a problem, they either leave feeling physically better or they at least know what's going on. I mean, how often have you seen a patient and been baffled? Not very often, right? You generally know what's going on. But those doctors who are coming out of residency who think private practice is dead, I just need to go to a hospital, I don't know. I think that they're talking to the wrong people. They're focusing on the wrong, chat groups that are just, filling the world with negativity. I will say that not as many startup, doctors who want to start up are reaching out to me now as they were pre-COVID. But then it tends to have like every 2 year, like a peak in a valley. But now I do have more that are reaching out that want to open or start a hybrid model where maybe it's just Medicare and like 1 or 2 private insurances that are popular in the area and the rest cash. Or one in particular in Iowa recently, all cash. She's opening cash because in that area, there's a lot of chiropractors that are cash. There's a lot of other specialists that are cash. And so the population, they understand it and they're not going to balk at it. So it's still possible to have a successful private practice. You just have to be able to pivot and to be able to change. And, you can't, even private practices that, they're 20 years old, doctors will reach out to me and say, what do you think my practice is worth? And this is not what I do, but it's kind of like some of the things that I've added to my repertoire over the years. I've had to, out of necessity. I have helped doctors through practice acquisitions, mergers, practice divorces. Practice divorces are way messier and take longer than marital divorces, way longer, right? I've helped with, doctors that are looking to purchase their employer's practice. And sad to say that most private practice doctors that have owned 15, 20 plus years, they think their practices are worth double what they are. And I do rough valuations. That's also part of the services. And I say rough because I am not going to ask them to count every Band-Aid. And I'm not going to ask them to do those tedious things. And I'm also not going to charge them 15 grand to do it. But I can give you a range of, based on the information that you gave me, profit and loss statements and certain things from the years, I can give them a range, which has been, in my experience, very close to what larger firms that are charging lots and making them count Band-Aids, come up with. And they're usually disappointed. But unless you own your real estate, it's worth, about the average of the last 3 years, 50% of the gross, or the average of the last 3 years net. And that's that. And if you've been in practice a long time, in the last 3 years, you've really slowed down, not as much surgery, take time off, play golf a little bit more, it's going to reflect in your numbers. And I feel bad because they say, well, it used to be worth this, and I used to do 17 surgeries a week. But that was 12 years ago. So, I mean, I've helped with a lot of different things that I never intended when I started this business. It was not my intention, but out of necessity, I've had to kind of figure it out. I've written a lot of legal documents that lawyers look at and say, yeah, I guess that's okay. So I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not claiming that you can use me as one, but that's kind of what I've had to do over the years, because my doctors are spending, $700 an hour, on an attorney who didn't quite understand, the world of podiatry or how private practices are run. And that can hurt you, in a merger, an acquisition, a sale.
I can definitely appreciate that. And I think that that's also sometimes this perspective taking. I don't think that it's ever fair to say that one practice setting is the best. Everything has its own trade-offs.
Right.
And so certainly, with a hospital employment comes a salary. Maybe there's bonus potential, maybe there's not. Again, those are the details
But
of
there's
the
also
contract.
nights and weekends and
But
lots
there's
of
a lot of fine print that comes in, again, how you're investing that amount of time and then what your long-term return might be. There's a lot less flexibility on autonomy. And I love that you had brought up one of the ways to thrive in a private practice is to be flexible and adaptable and be willing to pivot when you need to, because those are definitely things that you don't get that opportunity in a big, large corporate medicine type situation, because you're a cog in a wheel. Like, you are not the person driving the ship, you are just a piece of it. Right. Whereas when it's your practice, you have that flexibility, you have that autonomy, but with that comes the responsibility part of it. So everything just has different trade-offs. And I appreciate what you said about, kind of those last 3 years, because I think that helps give people good perspective about what they're kind of signing up for. If they did have then plans of, well, what is my exit strategy look like?
Well, and that's the key, is the exit strategy. Mm-hmm. So I used to say, you always want to have a 5-year plan, like at every stage, but like make it a 3 to 5 year plan now, because things change quickly, right? Mm-hmm. And like the trade-offs, right? Private equity, some view it as, it's like the worst, and I would never want to give up my autonomy. And I have been doing some consulting with some private equity firms. I'll tell you, it's not the worst, it's not the best. It's somewhere in the middle. But a lot of times it was the best way for doctors to keep practicing and give up the headaches when they had lost control over the practice and just didn't have it in them to put in the work because it was that far down the road to fix it, especially with staffing. I mean, hiring and training, and it's just, that's the worst part, I think, of private practice, is the staffing part. But, yes, you give up your autonomy or most of it when you sell to private equity, but you also get to go in, see your patients, do your charting, and leave. Kind of like Dr. Jensen, what you were doing, right? But you also owned it. So you had the best of both worlds at the time.
So what does that look like nowadays? Doc has a practice. I've heard some from my friends, multiple private equity groups.
Lots of different
will be approaching
scenarios, right?
So what would be? There's no cookie cutter then.
There is no cookie cutter. Sometimes I feel like it would be easier if there was. In some areas of the country with private equities, it's like DSW shoes. Like there's too many. You need to narrow down. It's like those menus at restaurants that are 10 pages long. Just narrow it down and it would take less time, But some of these doctors, I mean, I talk to them and I maintain relationships with them when I'm working with them, and then they sell. And, sometimes I feel like I work myself out of a job. I'll help these practices to create systems and become more efficient and make more money and improve the quality of life. And then they say, you know what, I think it's time to, join the hospital group or whatever. So it's like, okay, well, we fixed all the things that we wanted to fix. And now it became more attractive to private equity or hospital or whatever it is. But in any event, I think if you are wanting to start and open and continue with private practice, or you don't know about private equity or hospitals or whoever in the future, right now, you still need to clean up the practice that you have, and you need to make it more attractive on paper and in real life. So that would be my advice. No matter what, it's never going to hurt you to invest in cleaning it up and making it worth more. And that's just a shameless plug for myself, because that's what I help, practices do. But I mean, it doesn't matter if you have issues, they're going to dig it up when they start asking for financials, and they're going to ask questions. It's going to hurt your bottom line with how much they'll offer, because if it's a hot mess and you have a ton of debt, well, that's how that goes. You don't get much for it.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a shameless plug. I would say like it's almost like a lifeline in some ways.
Yeah.
I mean, business.
Well, like I said,
business.
I have a lot of conversations with doctors that I think I do scare them on that initial call, because I'm not, I don't know if it's where I'm from or the kind of person I am, but I just don't feel the need to sugarcoat, and I think a lot of doctors, either you like me or you don't because of that. Because, when a doctor hires me, why am I going to waste your time or your money and just placate you and say like, oh, okay, you should definitely keep that front desk person that calls in sick 3 times a week and then like leaves early the other 2 days, because she should be the face of your practice. I don't do that. If they're doing something that doesn't make sense, I'll say, that's absurd, and you should stop doing that tomorrow.
Yep.
Whether they do it or not, it's up to them. I always say to doctors when they call me to start up a practice, I'll say, I give you the roadmap, I give you the blueprints, I give you the tools, but I will not swing the hammer for you. And that's it. You want to paint your walls orange? Go ahead. I wouldn't suggest it, but it's your practice. You're the doctor. You're the boss. So.
Well, I like that. Joe, any final thoughts?
No, thank you so much, Cindy. It's all the quiet conversations that happen, and navigating uncertainty in so many ways in life is hard for everyone. So students are trying to figure out, how does all these changes in healthcare impact them? Residents, it's obviously a little bit more timely, and fellows, but then certainly the people that are in it and just trying to figure out, what do I want to do? How do I do the things I want to do? What does the best next steps look like? And so we appreciate you taking the time today to come and share your experiences and expertise with us in the audience. And thank you for the work that you do to help all of us live the lives we want to live.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Well, you're welcome. Can I ask you one more quick question? What was it like to get the call that you were going into the Hall of Fame?
Well, it was during COVID, so I was just happy to get a call,
Oh, sure. I just think,
and then ironically, 2020, the national meeting was supposed to be here in Boston, where I lived. So I said, I'll have everyone come and they won't even have to fly everywhere. And then it got canceled. So it wasn't until I didn't actually do the luncheon until 22. And then I had to bring everybody to Florida to do it. But man, COVID, it just, I said, yay. Well, because I was hosting every Monday night at I think 7 or 8 p.m. for like 16 weeks in a row. I did a free webinar open to the podiatry public. And it helped a lot of them stay in business, because I thought, what am I going to do? This is a pandemic that's going to shut down these private practices. I'm a practice management consultant. I'm going to have no job, no business. So I made it my mission to stay ahead of all the CDC's decisions, to here's where you order your sneeze guards. Here's where you do this. Here's how you set up your waiting room. And I helped a lot of them, get the PPP money, report on the PPP, keep it, not have to pay it back. I made it my mission. So I say, I think I deserved it. It was because of those 16 weeks in a row that I was, and sometimes it was just nice. I had lots of people on my Zoom calls, and, everyone's sitting and everyone had their cameras on. It was just nice to see people,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, very good. So you said Stoughton. We have where I grew up, we had a Stoughton in Wisconsin. It's a very Norwegian town, right?
Yeah, Stoughton. Well, here in Massachusetts, it's south of Boston. Yeah.
Oh, very good. All right, sounds good. We are so grateful for you to come on Dean's Chat and share your experience and your expertise, Cindy. Thank you so much. And where can people find you if they want to connect with you?
They can go on to pinnaclepa.com and lots of information on the website.
We'll put that into the show notes too, so they can click on it.
Thank
All
you.
right. That sounds good. Well, to all of our listeners out there, whether you're on Apple or Spotify, please give us a 5-star rating and perhaps leave a comment or two. If you're watching on YouTube, we'd love for you to become a subscriber. Joanna and I will continue to bring leaders in the profession in all facets of podiatry. This is our second, I guess, on practice management, but I love your optimistic viewpoint. And I think private practice, to Joe's point earlier, people are scared and there's uncertainty, but it really gives you the freedom to do whatever you want if you're coaching kids or whatever you like to do. So certainly not dead, and we appreciate you sharing that. Cindy, we're also going to send you a Dean's Chat mug. You start the day the Dean's Chat way, and when you'll remember our podcast for sure. Hopefully we'll get this out before the end of the year, so you can start 2026 get some more calls in there.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you. All right. Bye-bye, everybody. Cheers. Have a wonderful week. Bye, Cindy.